Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Have a very good day and hope so. We are at the middle of this course. I have planned to uh, deliver around 23 or 24 lectures on magnetochemistry, and it's our 13th lecture. So it means we are crossing our half portion of this course that is related to magnetochemistry. Here are some key points that we are going to discuss in this lecture. The main point that is applications of magnetic susceptibility. Magnetic susceptibility is used to determine the type of bond between metal and ligand in a transition metal complex. Sometimes it also determines the bond between two different metals in case of transition metal complexes in which there are more than one metals. Then we are able to determine stereochemistry or geometry of a transition metal complex, and then we shall see some miscellaneous applications of magnetic susceptibility. And at the end of this lecture, as usual, there are some questions for your assessment. Magnetic moment measurements have been used to distinguish between inner and outer orbital complexes of transition metal ions with electronic configuration having d4 to d7 electrons. So it means the possibility of inner and outer orbital complexes is only present in transition elements which have d4 to d7 electrons. This is evident from the following example of ferricyanide ion, and its ionic name will be written as hexacyanoferrate ion. The structure of iron atom and iron plus 3 ions are given in equation 1 and 2. As we know that iron has 26 electrons, so it means there are 6 electrons in d subshell. When it is converted into Fe plus 3, so it means it is losing 3 electrons. So 2 electrons are moving from 4s and 1 electron will be eliminated from d subshell. So after having Fe plus 3 oxidation state, there will be total 5 electrons in d subshell. In this case, we have a cyanide ligand. Cyanide ligand has tendency to pair up electrons in d subshell. So it will, you can see in the third equation that the d subshell is empty in the last two blocks. It means two of electrons have been sent to the previous orbitals, and the orbitals which are going to be involved in hybridization belong to 3d subshells. So in this case, the mode of hybridization will be written as D2sp3 hybridization, and 6 cyanide uh, ligands will donate pair of electrons to form coordinate covalent bond between iron and cyanide. The 5 unpaired electrons in iron plus 3 ion give a calculated magnetic moment of 5.92 Bohr magnetine. The magnetic moment for hexacyanoferrate ion, however, is 2.3, suggesting perhaps there is only one paired electrons. In order to explain the magnetic moment of hexacyanoferrate, Pauling suggested that the three unpaired electrons in 3d electrons in iron plus 3 undergo a pairing to give the arrangement as shown in equation number 2 in the previous slide. The resulting complex would have one unpaired electron, and the mode of hybridization will be D2sp3, that is inner orbital complex. The electrons to occupy the D2sp3 hybrid orbitals would be provided by the lone pair from each of the 6 cyanide ligands. This means that the bond between ligand and central metal ion are coordinate covalent in their linkage. Complexes like hexacyanoferrate are known as inner orbital complexes because the d orbital involved are from lower subshell than S and P. It means in these complexes, the orbital that is from D is 3D and S and P belong to fourth shell of central metal atom. Now the other case is ferrocyanide ion. In the ferrocyanide ion, there is one more electron than in ferricyanide ion. The extra electron pair with the unpaired d electron in 3 to give the structure shown in 4 in above figure. The ferrocyanide ion has therefore no unpaired electron and would be expected to diamagnetic. This is found to be it is an octahedral with D2sp3 hybridization. So there are some other examples which resemble to this structure. They are ferri or ferrocyanide ion, including hexaamine cobalt, hexacyanomanganate, hexaamine chromium, and hexacyanochromium. Ferrifluoride ion, hexafluoroferrate. Hexafluoroferrate is an octahedral like ferri and ferrocyanide ions. However, it has a magnetic moment of 6, which is close in agreement with the value of 5.9, a value which would be expected from a structure with 5 unpaired electrons. In order to explain this, it is assumed that no pairing of electrons in iron plus 3 ion takes place and the mode of hybridization is sp3d2, as we can see from the orbital level diagram that the d subshells that are involved in hybridization, they are 4d orbitals. So it means in hexafluoroferrate is an example of outer orbital complex because d orbitals involved in the hybridization are from a higher subshell than that of S and P. Other examples of outer orbital complexes are hexafluorocobaltate, hexaamine iron, and etc. In this case, the reason behind outer orbital complexes are sp3d2 hybridization lies in the fact that fluoride ion is a weaker ligand as compared to cyanide, as we have observed in our previous example. In previous cases, we observed that a cyanide ligand can pair up electrons present in d subshell. But in this case, fluoride ion is a weak ion, so it does not have capability to pair up electrons. That's why all of the electrons present in d subshell are are unpaired and contribute towards magnetization of the complex. That's why complex shows maximum magnetization. Now we shall come across the second application of magnetic moment, that is stereochemistry. Magnetic moment measurements have been used to determine stereochemistry of some transition metal complexes. For example, divalent nickel with two unpaired electrons in the free can form two types of complexes with four ligands.
If the bonds are arranged tetrahedrally and involve sp3 orbitals, the complex should be paramagnetic in nature with magnetic moment corresponding to two unpaired electrons. And in contrast, if, however, square planar arrangement of bonds is present around the central metal atom, then the mode of hybridization would be dsp2 instead of sp3 hybridization, and the complex would be diamagnetic. From our previous knowledge, we know that when there are four regions of electron density around a central metal atom, then there are two possible arrangement of electron densities around the central metal atom. One of these two arrangement uh, is sp3 with bond angle of 109.5, and the other arrangement around the central metal atom can be formed in square planar arrangement. In square planar arrangement, the bond angle between adjacent bonds is usually 90 degree. Here we have example of nickel. Nickel in +2 oxidation state has two unpaired electrons in its d subshell. So when there is a mode of hybridization sp3, the p orbital is p3. So it means we can see from the orbital level diagram there are two unpaired electrons and their magnetic moment is around 2.8 Bohr magneton. And in the last case, we can see that when there is a square planar arrangement, then uh, the mode of hybridization is dsp2, and we can see the empty orbital at the end. It means this orbital is empty and it does not take part in hybridization. So when there is no unpaired electron, so it means the material will act as a diamagnetic species and there will be a value for the magnetic moment equal to 0. This striking difference in the magnetic properties has been used to know arrangement around nickel atom in the following complexes: in tetraamine nickel sulfate and uh, hydrazine nickel sulfate, nickel bis-acetyl acetonate, which is different from planar arrangement. Planar arrangement is found in potassium tetracyanonyclate, nickel glyoxime, nickel phthalocyanide, and many other compounds. In a similar manner, divalent cobalt having three unpaired electrons may form tetrahedral complexes in which no electron pairing takes place, or in contrast, it can form square planar complexes with only one unpaired electron as presented in the next slide. Thus, a magnetic moment of about 3.9 Bohr magneton indicates a tetrahedral complex as in case of hydrazine cobalt chloride, whilst a moment of about 1.7 Bohr magneton indicates a planar complex as in cobalteous phthalocyanine. Cobalt, it is having atomic number 27 because it comes after iron and atomic number of iron is 26. The first orbital level diagram is representing +2 oxidation state. So we can see that there are total 7 electrons in d subshell. So plus 2 charge shows that the two electrons that are missing from this cation were belonging to 4s. So as we know that the filling and leaving of electron usually takes flame from the valence shell. So that's why the electrons have been eliminated from 4s subshell. So after getting plus 2 charge or plus 2 oxidation state, then there are two, we can see that there are three unpaired electrons in D subshell. Now, there are two possibilities whether one electron go back and paired with one of the three unpaired electrons, and in doing so there will be only one unpaired electron, and the other case is that there is no pairing of electron and the complex will exhibit a magnetic moment equal to 3 electrons. So when there is no pairing of electron, then the mode of hybridization will be sp3 hybridization, and the complexes will exhibit a magnetic moment equal to 3.9. But in case of square planar arrangement, the electron will be paired, as you can see in the second last orbital of d subshell. There is only one unpaired electron with upward spin. So in this case, the electron having belonging to 3d subshell will be involved in mode of hybridization will be dsp2. So the complex will show a magnetic moment equivalent to 1, and its value will be around 1.7 Bohr magneton. Now there are some miscellaneous applications of magnetic moment. Presence of unsuspected bond in some compounds can be predicted by knowing the value of magnetic moment from a reliable instrument. Magnetic measurements may provide unequivalent evidence of only a few metal atoms. However, magnetic moments have proved valuable for indicating the existence of unsuspected bonds in a number of molecules. For example, cupric acetate monohydrate, like other salts, is expected to be paramagnetic with a magnetic moment corresponding to unpaired electron. Because copper has ground state electronic configuration D9, and in this case it is uh, divalent, so it means it loses its electron from 4s subshell. So in plus 2 oxidation state, copper will be having one unpaired electron. But when its magnetic moment was executed experimentally, then it showed diamagnetism. Similarly, uh, an X-ray structural analysis of the salt has showed that molecule exists as a dimeric unit of its unit formula. So it means there are two copper acetate molecules which dimerizes. This is a structural representation of copper acetate. We can bisect this molecule from the middle. So the upper carbon, it contains one unpaired electron, and the lower carbon, it also contains one unpaired electron. So if we theoretically study this molecule, then we assume or expect that each copper ion contains one unpaired electron. So this complex should show a magnetic moment equivalent to one electron. But X-ray analysis showed that
The existence of molecule is in the form of dimeric. So while this molecule forms a dimer, then these two coppers share their electrons somewhere in space in between them. Then the two electrons shared by both of these copper ions become a pair, and the behavior of molecule as a whole will be observed as a diamagnetic species. In the structure, the two copper atoms in each unit are only 2.64 angstrom apart, and presumably some sort of electron pairing takes place with the formation of metal bond. That I told you that individually each copper ion has D9 electronic configuration, and due to one unpaired electron, the expectation from the molecule are to be paramagnetic, but practically when its magnetic moment was recorded, the molecule showed diamagnetism, and the diamagnetism behavior was supported by its XRD analysis, which showed that the molecule exists in a dimeric form. Iron carbonyl complex is another molecule which is expected to be paramagnetic, but this substance exhibits diamagnetism. Again, X-ray analysis of the crystal exhibits a close approach of the two metal atoms. The same sort of interaction has been shown to occur in the cobalt carbonyl complex, which is also a diamagnetic in nature. So the structural representation of the complex that has iron as a central atom. So these iron atoms are closer enough to each other. Individually, both of these irons have one unpaired electron, but when the molecule forms a dimer, then these electrons are shared with each other with opposite spin and become a pair. So, due to formation of a pair, the molecule will show a phenomena of diamagnetism. Odd electron molecule. Paramagnetism is usually associated with presence of unpaired electrons. A number of simple molecules like nitrogen oxide, nitrogen dioxide, chlorine dioxides are paramagnetic because they possess an odd number of electrons. However, the condensed phase of nitrogen oxide, nitrogen dioxide are diamagnetic. This indicates that the electron pairing presumably occurs through dimerization. So it means when we decrease temperature of these molecules, then these molecules come closer to each other, as all of you are very much familiar that the molecules of gases are very much far from each other, and then the molecules of liquid are far from each other, but they are close to each other as compared to gases. And when we talk about solids, we know that the molecules of solids are closely packed to each other. So when these three molecules will be available in their condensed form, then the distance between individual atoms will be less as compared to gases. When these molecules come closer enough to each other, then they share and dimerize, and due to sharing and dimerization, the molecule will exhibit phenomena of dimagnetization. So, at the end of this lecture, I have some questions that are not actually the part of this lecture, means I have not discussed in this lecture, but you have to prepare a proper assignment and you have to upload it in Google Classroom, that what do you know about magnetic titration. So I am giving you a clue, not with the specific example, that uh, magnetic titration is that in the reactant or product, or we can say the sample in burette or sample in uh, your conical flask may be a paramagnetic in nature, and when you titrate it with some other species, then with the passage of time the species is going to be converted into diamagnetism. So it means gradually there will be a change in magnetic moment, and vice versa means uh, there is also a possibility of a substance which is diamagnetic in nature, and its diamagnetic is a magnetic moment is approximately or equal to zero, and then we titrate it with some other molecule, then with the addition of other molecule its magnetization is gradually increasing. So it means titration of a magnetically active or magnetically non-active compound, which is later converted into the other species, is a tool to estimate or determine some specific molecules. So I expect from you that you have to find a proper case or an experiment to justify magnetic titrations. Then uh, the second example, which belongs to the first question, is that when iron 2 ions are titrated with bipyridine, mono, bis, and tris complexes are formed, which are paramagnetic, but intermediate species are diamagnetic. So, to explain your first question, you can take the advantage of second question, but I would expect from you guys that you have to at least present two or three examples to justify your assignment. With this, I would like to say thank you so much. Inshallah, we'll see you in our coming lecture, and Assalamu alaikum.